Get out of my head, Charles. But you're wearing the helmet. Get out of my head, Charles. You're wearing the fucking helmet, Eric. Get out of my head, Charles. I'm not in your head. Get out of my head, Charles. Oh wait, I'm wearing the helmet, right? Okay, I'll take it off. Get out of my head, Charles. Eric! Get out of my head, Charles. You have to come back, Eric. Get out of my head, Charles. Nah, this movie's gonna be shit. Hello, and welcome back to the Indecent Exposure Show, episode 17. Oh wait, shit. Is it 17? Is it 17? Shit. Yes, 17. 17. Definitely 17. So, today, I'm continuing my movie reviews, my comic book movie reviews for the year, now that Doctor Strange has come out. Episode 16, I did DC. So now, episode 17, I'm doing Fox. And then the next episode, I do Marvel. And all that shit. But for Fox, there's two movies. There's Deadpool, and then there's Xmen Apocalypse. And I'm going to do both of them. And I'm going to start off with Deadpool, because I really like that movie. So, for Deadpool, I can understand why a lot of people don't like Deadpool, because he seems to be very, very, very overhyped, and I really can understand that. Because people, the comics kind of cram him down your throat every second. So if you're not a Deadpool fan, you're gonna find it very annoying. Even I find it annoying at certain things. Like certain things I don't really feel like reading all the time. Like the main series by Jerry Duggan is amazing in my opinion. Truly amazing. He's truly redefined Deadpool. He's revolutionized Deadpool. He's made Deadpool very relatable. You can actually emphasize with Deadpool, which is why I really love it. So if you haven't actually read that series, they just released a Pashan and Duggan omnibus, and you should definitely check that out. You know, go to Amazon, check out Deadpool, Jerry Duggan and Pashan omnibus. Well, Duggan and Pashan omnibus, and check that out, because it's 1344 pages, which means it's the entire first run of that Deadpool series from issues 1 to 45, and then it has Dracula's Gauntlet where he meets his wife, and a bunch of other shit. Over 1,300 pages. That thing could fucking kill you if it hits you in the head. So just check it out. But back to the movie. Me personally, I love the movie. It was what a fun comic book movie should be, in my opinion. It didn't have the overarching story of a Marvel movie, with the continuity, and it didn't have the cinematography, the dark cinematography of a DC movie, but I enjoyed it because it was fun. It was comedic, and even more than anything, it fit the character of Deadpool perfectly, in my opinion. Like, they got Wade Wilson down perfectly. Ryan Reynolds was born to play Wade Wilson, which is why I'm glad that he advocated so much for this movie to be made, because he did awesome at it. I mean, mind you, there could have been some things better, but that was somewhat due to Fox's part in terms of the budget. But I feel like the budget actually helped, because it helped it keep, stay down to earth. Like, the movie was perfect in my opinion. It's a perfect movie to me, but it's not the perfect movie. I just enjoyed it that much. That's how I can make the discerning choice. Discerning choice is, I love the movie. It's probably one of my top movies. It's one of the top movies of the year, and I'm glad it did so well. But it's not the greatest movie ever, which no one expected it to be. But it was fucking awesome. So let me get into it. So first of all, the plot. The plot was very straightforward. However, I think that's what helped it, in my opinion, was the fact that the plot was so straightforward, and it was very easy to follow, and it was easy to keep up with, and it was easy to keep going. Like, you can understand how he got from point A to point B to point C, point D, mercenary, Then he meets his girlfriend. Then he gets cancer, and then he goes into this program. Yada yada yada, all that shit. And I really enjoyed how they handled the Weapon X thing. Like it's if you haven't seen the comics, Wade Wilson gets his healing factor from Wolverine, because the Weapon X program had already experimented on Wolverine, and they used some of his DNA in order to give Deadpool his healing factor for his cancer. However, Wade Wilson's healing factor is much, much stronger than Wolverine's. Like, it puts Wolverine's to shame. However, that's the problem. It's too strong, so it super accelerated his cancer, which is why he has the skin condition that he has. So, and if you haven't seen this movie, which I'm just saying, where the fuck have you been? But if you haven't seen this movie, how they actually did that is they had this guy named Ajax. Ajax. It's a dish soap. Yeah, they had the guy named Ajax, and he runs this facility where he experiments on people supposedly to make superheroes, which is a big load of shit. He really just experiments on people to make them into super weapons. So he takes Wade and he gives him an injection, which is supposed to bring out his his potential power. And the torture does not work, because in order for it to actually activate, you have to cause an intense amount of pain. However, in Wade Wilson's case, this did not work, so they had to up it. They put him into a chamber where the airflow could actually be reversed, and it could actually be forwarded, and they would actually take out the air up until he was about to suffocate, and then they would leave it there, so he would constantly be in a state of choking. And so after being in there for some time, he finally was able to mutate, which gave him the skin condition. And then he broke out, and then he went to go see Vanessa, not a shit. But honestly, before that, the humor of this, the humor of the movie is amazing. I've never laughed so much in a comic book movie. It really was beautiful. It was actually like looking at a Deadpool comic, which is, I love it. I love it. The characters were cast well. Weasel, I felt, was cast kind of well. He was a bit too cool in that movie, in my opinion, because Weasel in the comics is a lot more of a techno geek. But I enjoyed the Weasel that they used for that movie. But he just seemed too cool and too good looking, in my opinion, a little bit. Not that there's anything wrong with that, not that there's anything wrong with good looking people in movies. That's fine. But yeah, and I really enjoyed the dynamic between Vanessa and Wade, and it was just really playful. Like, that's the kind of relationship that I want. Besides the whole mercenary thing, that's the type of relationship I want. That's a great relationship. They had a lot of humor. They had a lot of chemistry together. They made it very believable, which is what you want to do in acting. But yeah, so back to it. He gets his powers. He breaks out. He gets beaten by Ajax at first, and then he goes on to try to find Ajax later on. So he goes on this hunting spree, and he hunts all of his known associates, and then he eventually finds them, and they eventually fight. A bunch of other shit happens, but the movie was awesome. Like, the plot is not very hard to follow. So if you haven't seen it yet, go see it. But moving on to the actual characters, I feel like the weakest part of the movie was the villain. Mainly because he was a stereotypical villain. Like, he was the stereotypical villain. His motivation was really, I'm just going to make super soldiers so I can sell you off, and that was it. Honestly, his motivations were weak. It was weak, one-sided, one-dimensional. He was a one-dimensional character. Everybody else in the movie was fleshed out a little bit more, but he was one-dimensional. Probably the weakest part of this movie. However, I can kind of put that aside because at least Deadpool was the strongest point of this movie. Wade Wilson carried the movie mainly, and he was able to, keep the load, thankfully. So Ajax was the weakest part of this movie because he was a stereotypical British Bond villain. So that's the only thing I can really take away from it. The cinematography good, the effects good. It fit a Deadpool movie. And the fact that it was R-rated and it took full advantage of this R rating was beautiful. It was beautiful. I loved it. I really loved it. The fact that they made Deadpool R-rated, that was the best part of this movie for me, because it opened up them, it allowed them to do all the things that they wanted to do, and I loved watching it. I saw Deadpool twice. I saw it once on Valentine's Day weekend, that Sunday, and then I saw it again, with this girl I was dating at the time, and we were supposed to see something else, but we didn't have enough time, so she didn't see Deadpool, but I did. So I said, all right, let's go see Deadpool. So I saw this twice, dude, and I loved it each time. It was fucking amazing to me. Great movie. But yeah, the villain's weak. Like probably the strongest villain in terms of motivations that came out this whole year. Like looking at I won't count Doctor Strange yet, because Doctor Strange just came out. So between all the movies that had come out beforehand, Suicide Squad, kinda not really weak villain, like stereotypical. Definitely not Apocalypse. No. Batman vs Superman. No. So probably the best villain of the best comic book villain of the entire year was in Civil War. It was Baron Zemo. Zemo had the strongest motivations, and he was the most interesting villain besides Doctor Strange, but I will get to Doctor Strange next episode. But besides that, he was definitely the strongest villain, the most interesting person to watch, in all the comic book movies that have come out this year. But I feel like he for this movie he did his part. However, definitely the movie's weakest aspect. Everything else was great. The effects, forced the movie to be kind of a lot more creative, in my opinion, which was awesome. Because most of the funds for this movie went to Colossus, I believe. Because Colossus was like 5 guys. Like it was 5 guys doing like filling the roles of Colossus. I think one person was his voice, another one was his body shape, and all that shit. So it was it's very good stuff. Now, I'm just gonna end this part, but this movie was awesome. The movie was really fucking awesome in my opinion, and I loved it. I especially loved it enough to go pay for it on 2 separate occasions. So, believe me, this movie was fire. If you don't like Deadpool, I can understand why that would be the case, but give this movie a chance if you haven't done so far. At least one time. I'm not telling you it's going to be the greatest thing ever. I'm just saying it's a very enjoyable movie. Probably the perfect comic book movie in my opinion. Because of, just how it is. It was like watching a comic book somewhat. And I'm not talking about that shitty Ang Lee Hulk movie from 2003 that actually used comic book panels. No, I mean, in terms of tone, in terms of how it was set, it was the perfect comic book movie. And Ryan Reynolds was the high point of that movie. It was beautiful, and he had a great supporting cast. He had Blind Owl, he had Weasel, as I mentioned before. He had Negasonic Teenage Warhead. He had our Colossus, and then Vanessa. So it was great. It was a great movie, in my opinion. It was a really great movie, and the way it ended was also good. The movie fit. The movie didn't do anything to actually bring itself down. Like everything it did brought itself up. So I appreciated that. So that was definitely an awesome movie. Probably a movie I'm gonna watch many, many, many times, many, many years from now, along with its sequel. However, let's get to something that I, oh boy, might feel a bit different on, which is Xmen Apocalypse. Now this movie, this fucking movie, this fucking movie was fucking terrible. It was terrible, just fucking terrible. Like it really was. Like this movie was so bad. I wasn't sure if I would ever smile again. Like this movie was so shite that I didn't think I would smile again. I thought I would be in a surplus of depression for years to come. For years to come, I never thought I'd smile. I never thought I'd smile. I'm just so disappointed in, because the X-Men comics are the comics that I read more than anything. When I was growing up, the first type of comics that I read there was two types. There was Spider-Man and there was X-Men. Like my dad and uncle had some comic books that they had in the basement, the old ones, and it was Spider-Man, the Maximum Carnage, series. They had a few parts of that. They had Spider-Man 2099, the original run back in the 90s, which is why I like 2099 now, Miguel O'Hara. And then there was X-Men comics. And if you know back then, Claremont we were Claremont comics. And I was just so disappointed by this movie because Apocalypse is my favorite X-Men villain ever. I'm just so disappointed because Apocalypse is an amazing character. There's so much there that you can work with for any writer. He's got his mutant powers, his molecular. He can manipulate his molecules, among other things. He can manipulate his molecules. He's got celestial armor and all that shit. I mean, mind you, I don't think Fox could do that. Maybe because I don't think they own the Celestials. Hopefully Marvel Studios owns the Celestials, because I'd fucking love to see them in a movie. But X-Men Apocalypse was shite. It was a fucking shitty movie. It just really was. Like, it made me mad that I went to see this movie. Oh my god, this movie was so terrible. Fucking gets me angry thinking about it. Alright, so I'm gonna break this movie down. So I'm gonna start with the plot. The fucking plot. Mind you, the timeline is all fucked. We don't care about timelines anymore. It's gonna show up a bit in this movie, some inconsistencies. But, we don't want to talk about the timeline. Days of Futures Past ended all that shit. Thank God. We fucking done with that, man. We're done. Everything's reset. Because Fox realized they fucked up. Fox fucks up everything they do except maybe Deadpool. Don't even fucking get me started on the Fantastic Four. Don't get me fucking started on that fucking cloud that was supposed to be Galactus. Don't get me fucking started. So the plot. Basically, it opens up in Egypt, and Apocalypse is having this ceremony in a temple, and apparently he is able to transfer his consciousness into another mutant's body, and so he'll take their powers. Basically, he'll be in one body, he'll look like them, and then he'll transfer his consciousness into their body, and then his form will be the same. If you've ever watched Naruto and you know Orochimaru, it's basically the same thing. Like, he'll change his appearance into that of, into himself. Like, the other mutant will lose his appearance, and all that shit. But what the fuck I have the problem with is Apocalypse is already immortal. He's already kind of immortal. He's already kind of immortal. And at the start of the movie, they gave him a mutant power. They gave him immortality, because apparently there was a mutant who had immortality. And in comic book sense, if you don't know what type of mutant that is called an external. It's called an external, mutants who have immortality, externals. And Apocalypse is already an external. That's the thing, though. So I just, fuck, Fox just got me pissed off with this movie. I'm just gonna say this first. If you don't give a fuck about comic books, maybe you enjoyed this movie. It's quite possible. But for me, who read comic books, and I'm already kind of disappointed with the X-Men series, besides X2 and Days of Futures Past, which are the two movies in my opinion that aren't shite. You know, the original X-Men kind of gets a pass, because what the fuck were they doing? They still don't know what the fuck they're doing. But, I mean, how would they know what the fuck they were doing? So that's a pass on that. But this movie was shite. So Apocalypse is already an external, and they decided to give him immortality. You know, yada yada, all that shit. Then he gets attacked by some, by some Egyptian rebels, and they have bombs. Like they trigger a trap, and it ends up trapping Apocalypse in the pyramid for about a couple thousand years. And then we open up, and we're back in the regular reality, and this is the 80s. So this is the 80s. So Days of Futures Past happened 10 years before this, and this is the 80s. And Charles Xavier is opening with the lesson. You know, we got Days of Futures Past Charles, which I love this Charles. I love both Charles. The conflicted thing about me is the X-Men movies are shite, but there are just certain people in the X-Men movies that I can't get mad at, like Ian McKellen, Michael Fassbender, I was about to call him Charles Xavier, but Patrick Stewart and McAvoy. Those guys are the ones I can't get mad because they're fucking amazing. They really are fucking amazing. I mean, Hugh Jackman, naturally, but his single movies have been shite. Hopefully Logan changes that. I'm really looking forward to this movie. But I went to go see. I didn't see Origins Wolverine in theaters, but I did go see The Wolverine in theaters. And that movie was shite. Mind you, there's something to like about that movie, but it was shite. It really was shite. But there is a lot to like about it. I'd probably like it more if I didn't have to go pay for it to see it and I waited. But regardless, it's a shite movie, but enjoyable nonetheless. So I'm sorry. Back to Apocalypse, because there's so much to fucking hate about the entire X-Men verse that I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. So back to Apocalypse. This whole movie is just shite. This whole movie is just shite, and we realize this along the way. Mind you, there's a few moments that you'll probably enjoy, but this movie was shite. I can't say that enough. This movie was fucking garbage. It was a garbage fucking movie. It was garbage. If you got kids in the room, get them out, because I'm just gonna keep fucking cursing. It's fucking garbage. Oh, it's fucking garbage. Fucking garbage. Fucking garbage. Like, oh, boy, fucking garbage. It's a fucking yo, take it up your shoe and fucking throw it away. Just fucking throw it away. What the fuck was Fox thinking? They fuck up a lot with the X-Men movies. They fucked up they fucked up Weapon X. They fucked up Lady Deathstrike somewhat. I can't fucking handle it, and they got fucking Toad from the first X-Men movie, and now we got fucking Toad. No, I'm gonna do a video on what is wrong with the entire X-Men verse, and I don't want to fuck it up for myself. No, I'm saving that. I'm just gonna focus on this one movie. Plot wise, nothing makes sense. This movie was kind of shite. They got Nightcrawler, and they got fucking Angel fighting off And mind you, they gave Angel no characterization because did the results of fucking X-Men 3 not count? Like, did Days of Futures Past ensure that he was born many years before? Because he would have to have been born if he's like in his 20s, he'd have to have been born in the 60s. However, in X-Men 3, he was in modern times, which this movie came out, I want to say 2006. So he had to have been born somewhere in the 80s, in the previous one. So what happened for him to be born in the 60s when the timeline wasn't even fucking changed yet? It was changed in the 70s. What the fuck is this mutant power? Fucking premature aging? What the fuck is he, Benjamin Button? Like, boy, like that's not Warren Worthington. That's just fucking Benjamin Button up there. There's so much to fucking hate about this movie. If you really think about it, there's so much to fucking hate. And I'm not the type to let myself enjoy everything, at least not comic book related. Because my comic books, I have standards for my comic books, which is why I get tight at the certain decisions that DC and Marvel make. But I love them. I don't buy everything that they fucking put out because some of it is shite, but I love them. So when I make my comic book movies, and it's a great time to be alive, honestly. Like we getting comic book movies up to our asses. Like these studios want to keep making these movies. They want to keep making them, and it's fucking oh boy, Fox. Oh, I know you mean well. I know you meant well with that shitty Fantastic Four movie. Just give the rights back to Marvel, please. No, just do it. But anyway, this movie was shitey. This movie was shitty for a variety of reasons. I mean, they did a nice Psylocke. Psylocke was nice. She also got no characterization. Because there's a lot with... I don't know Psylocke very well, but she was very prominent in the 90s run. And she's also in the Uncanny X-Men series written by Cullen Bunn right now. So if you want to check her out in her most recent outing, go check that out. I don't know if it's ending soon, but go check that out. So the Psylocke. Then there was Storm, where she was in Egypt. I mean, I think she was in Egypt. She was in some, yeah, it had to be Egypt because that's where Apocalypse rose. And you know, then they had was the Last Horseman, Magneto. We just had to think that somehow after his attack on the president, Magneto wasn't just, you know, there's a big bounty on this guy. He's probably the most famous criminal on the planet at this point. And you're thinking, and the woman, his wife fucking knew about it. She knew. Oh, I'm Magneto. He straight up said, "Yo, I told you who I was the first night I got here." I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, boy, you told her you were Magneto? Holy fuck! Like, how that woman is crazy. How the fuck did she not call the police? I fucking figure out Magneto, boy, you're gone. I'm done. Nah. But let's just chat about this movie, boy. And then they killed my boy Havoc. And you know the terrible thing about that is, if Havoc dies in the comic books, I feel really sad about it. When Havoc died in the fucking movie, I didn't give a shit because who the fuck is Havoc? Who the fuck is Havoc? Honestly, who is Havoc in the movies, in the X-Men movies? Who is he? Who the fuck is he? He's just generic character. He's just generic character number 3. Like I appreciate the fact that they gave Banshee, Banshee, who's been a long time X-Men in the comics. I think he's dead now in the comics, but they gave him a personality. I'm thankful. In First Class, of course, we never get to see the fucker again. We never get to see Sean Cassidy fucking again. But whatever. But so there's a lot to hate about this movie. The Quicksilver scene, great scene, but it's fucking terrible. It's fucking, this movie's fucking terrible all around. Apocalypse, Doesn't even use his molecular powers. Like the guy can control his own molecules. If you've ever watched Xmen the animated series and you saw the Apocalypse episodes, you can see that he can change his hand into a fucking like mallet. He can change it into a blade. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. That is literally his mutant power, is that he can do whatever the fuck he wants with his molecules. He can change his body whatsoever way. And one of the things that he does the most is he expands his body so that he changes the shape of his body. He doesn't do it as much in the comics as much, but he does do it fairly a lot in the animated series. I mean, he used to do it a lot more in the comics back in the day, but not so much now. And they showed that once. Like, they didn't really even show the molecular powers. And then the way that they turned Charles Xavier bald, oh boy. And McAvoy looks good bald. He really does. He looks good bald. He looks like he looks very good bald. This movie was really shite. The action was decent. The ending was decent. And the Phoenix. This got me tight. So the Phoenix Force, if you read comics, is this force that is said to have maybe created the universe of the Marvel universe. However, there's a lot of different theories on that. Writers fucking, overstep their boundaries, because it's either the one above all made it, or the Infinity Gems, when it was a single being, when they were a single being, created the universe. But we don't know. But the Phoenix Force is this very ancient force of cosmic energy, and supposedly it goes looking for a host. But this thing is basically almost impossible to stop. I think the last time someone stopped it was during Secret Wars, when Cyclops had a Phoenix egg, and the Phoenix Force came out of the egg, and it possessed him, and he went up to Doom, and he tried to fight Doom, and Doom broke his neck easily, because Doom was using the powers of the Molecule Man, which Molecule Man is an OP motherfucker. He's OP. He's fucking P. If you wanna know what I mean, read Secret Wars. Read Secret Wars. Read Ultimates number 6. The Ultimates number 6. He pretty much bitched Galactus into doing whatever he said. Like, Galactus was scared of this guy. You'll understand how fucking powerful that makes him. But the Phoenix Force. So I just want people to know, for anybody who saw that movie, that is not the case. The Phoenix Force is not part of Jean Grey's powers. The Phoenix Force is something that comes to Earth and possesses her, and it likes to take the Grey family. And what I mean by that is literally like descendants of Jean Grey. It enjoys powerful psychics. That's what it usually goes through. And Jean Grey was one of the most powerful psychics on Earth at the time that the Phoenix Force first came, and that's how she became Dark Phoenix. Because the Phoenix Force was using her to learn human emotions, and the Phoenix Force couldn't really handle it. And it kind of lashed out and went crazy and all that shit. But I just want you to know, that is not the case in the comics. It's not the case. The Phoenix Force isn't a part of Jean Grey. It isn't something that just awakens. And that fucking got me tight. I know you're going to say, well, man, it's not the literal interpretation. But still, I accepted it with Marvel Studios. Because Marvel Studios makes amazing movies. Because even if it isn't what the fuck you wanted, they do such a good job that you really can't complain all that much. Like with Marvel Studios, with any Marvel movie, you can nitpick. Except for maybe Iron Man 3, or maybe even Iron Man 2, or The Incredible Hulk. You really can't nitpick very much, because all their movies have been amazing. Ant-Man was amazing. It was fucking amazing. Was it the perfect movie? No, but it was fucking amazing. It was beautiful to watch. Everybody expected that movie to do shite. Like, what the fucking Ant-Man? What the fuck's an Ant-Man? And now we care about Ant-Man. We can say that Ant-Man is one of the best Marvel movies. You know, we can say that. You know how fucking amazing that is? That Ant-Man of all fucking people, all the characters, we can say he had a great movie. But they can't make a fucking good X-Men movie. Like, what the fuck is that? Even the Guardians of the Galaxy, which no one really expected to do that well, is one of the best Marvel movies. It's one of my favorites because of how it is. It's how it's made. James Gunn and the cast of that movie and everybody who works on the special effects, everybody who worked on everything, did an amazing job. And yet we can't make an Apocalypse movie? One of the best X-Men villains of all time. You can't make a good movie around him? Really? You can't do that? And let me get to the Weapon X scene. The Weapon X, because as you might have noticed, I gave up on fucking breaking this movie down, because this movie, focused thought is not a thing for me right now. So, somehow the mansion explodes. So Apocalypse kidnaps Charles Xavier using one of Psylocke's portals. Oh, is it one of Apocalypse's portals? What the fuck ever. I don't care anymore. So he kidnaps him, and Havoc hits the reactor just as they're leaving, because he was aiming at them, but then they got into the portal. And the portal closed, and the beam never hit them. The beam actually hit, I think, a generator. And so that is where Havoc died, because the generator set off an explosion underneath the mansion near Cerebro. And yeah, that's how Havoc dies, because he was closest to the blast. Quicksilver went slow motion and actually got everybody out. Very enjoyable scene. Honestly, I have no problems with any of the Quicksilver scenes. It's great stuff, honestly. But that's how Havoc dies. And then believe it was Quicksilver, Nightcrawler, Cyclops, and Jean Grey. They all go. They're coming back from. Yeah, they're coming. Or maybe I think Jubilee was with them. I don't give a fuck. They're coming back from a mission. No. They're coming back from the mall. They were hanging out, and they come back just as this is happening. And then Stryker's team, Stryker from the other X-Men movies, William Stryker, was there, and he rounded up the mutants. And he said, okay, well, we need... He rounded up most of the teachers. He didn't think to take the other mutants, like the other kids who could be mutants. He was just like, no, this is a school for gifted mutants. We're only going to take 3 mutants, because no one else can be a mutant. No one else can be a mutant. We can't ask any of these other people where anybody is. Mind you, they probably didn't fucking know anyway. But still, that's one inconsistency with the movie. There's time inconsistencies. There's a whole bunch of other fucking inconsistencies. Like, seriously. Whoever the fucking screenwriters are for these movies, I want to slap them. I want to slap them across the face, because they fucking killed my childhood. They killed my childhood. X-Men movies should be amazing. You legitimately have an entire verse of characters. You have hundreds upon thousands of characters to fucking do and do well, and you can't. You can't. I can understand if you can't make a Fantastic Four movie, because Fantastic Four isn't really, they don't rely on fucking, like, it's not a typical comic book movie. It's not. Kind of in the same way Doctor Strange isn't a typical comic book movie. There's when you're reading a comic book, every comic book has a different tempo, it has a different tone, it has a different visual sense. You're not going to look at the Avengers the same way you would Doctor Strange. You're not going to see the same imagery. You're not going to see the same paneling. It's going to be a bit more mystical in Doctor Strange. It's going to be a lot more straightforward and boom boom actiony in the Avengers. And comic book movies, I mean, movies are the same way, but especially comic book movies. Fantastic Four, it's not just going to be all, oh, bam, bam, action. No, there's going to be a lot of thought involved. There's going to be a lot of scientific calculations. There's going to be a lot more placed on the family aspect, especially now that they have the two children, Valeria and Franklin. And I feel like Fox just can't do that. You know, Marvel Studios has all their movies down. If they were going to fail, it was going to be with Doctor Strange. At least at the time of this podcast. We're going to do Doctor Strange, but I can't. Like, this movie, X-Men Apocalypse, was just terrible to me. It's just too much. It's just too much. But, sorry, before I forget. So they're in, they get taken, and Jean uses her powers to get them on a plane so that they can save the other teachers. And they're in a cage. This is another fucking inconsistency. They're in a cage, and Jean says, "Oh, I can't use my powers on anybody." And then we get, so they're stuck in the cage. Then we get to the base, and after Stryker is done talking to Mystique and Beast and everybody that she took, we don't fucking know how they got out of the cage. But they're seen walking around the Weapon X facility, or at least what I can assume is Weapon X. Maybe just the government. But that's another one. Why don't you show plot points, important plot points? You know, important plot points. Like, why don't you show that shit? But no, we don't know how he got out. But they somehow released Weapon X, which, if you don't know, is Wolverine. And they release him, and that it's a callback from the comics because Weapon X was originally in Canada. So they were originally in Canada, and they had this kind of visor thing on him, like this visor, literally a visor, like it's some LED visor with a lot of brain wave technology. It's like a visor and a helmet, and that was kind of how it is. And they put this on Wolverine, and I kind of like it, but it didn't translate too well. It was a little goofy. I enjoyed that they put it in, but it was really fucking goofy. It really was. Very fucking goofy. Oh man. It was very fucking goofy, and I can't believe I'm laughing during this. And I'm not laughing just at how fucking terrible this movie is, but I'm fucking laughing at the costume because it was so fucking goofy. Like, the Weapon X, it was supposed to be serious because that was when they were training Wolverine to become a weapon. No, they were training him to be a weapon. It was supposed to be a serious thing. It was supposed to be fucking cool and shit. And it's just fucking goofy. And I enjoy the fact that they put it in. It's one of the high points of this movie, which isn't really saying much. So that was the Wolverine cameo, because he kills everyone, and then he leaves after Jean Grey kind of helps him unfragment his mind, and he goes into the wilderness. You know, we're gonna see him in later on. I'm gonna see him later on. But oh boy, but this movie is just terrible. So you break him out. They go to the final battle. Yada yada yada. Storm joins the team. Storm kind of betrays the team because of some shit, and then Magneto finally comes to his senses because of some shit. And fucking Quicksilver didn't even tell Magneto he was his son. Like how would that have negative effects? How would that have negative effects on anything? Oh, I lost my family. I have no family left. Oh, shit. You know, oh, I have a son. That's nice. Like, how is that not a fucking thing? How is that not fucking something that would be good for the movie? I feel like these fucking screenwriters just wanted to go, oh, you know what? Let's add some dramatic... I'm sorry. Let's add some dramatic suspense for the next movie. And jeez, man, this fucking movie. This fucking movie got me tight. Even the fucking Fantastic Four movies don't get me that tight. I didn't watch the 2015 one. I didn't watch that shit. Rise of the Silver Surfer is probably the movie that gets me the most tight because I love the Silver Surfer and Galactus and Cosmic Marvel. But we'll get to that another time. But the thing about it is, I don't expect much from those movies. I don't read as much Fantastic Four. And if you want a good Fantastic Four run, check out Jonathan Hickman's run. And to get back to it, the X-Men movies were my childhood. These are the first comic book movies I watched. X-Men in the animated series is my favorite cartoon, based on a comic book of all time. It was fucking beautiful. And they just made it shite. They really just made it shite. A shitty shite movie. I don't know what can save the X-Men franchise besides going to Marvel. And even Marvel saying, yeah, we can't really fit them in at this point. So I don't know what the fuck is going to go on. And they're talking about making another X-Men movie. And I know that in Logan, Mr. Sinister, I think, is supposed to make an appearance in the Reavers. Basically the Reavers are the cybernetic anti-mutant hate group. So that should be good. And Nathaniel Essex, Mr. Sinister, is a genetical scientist engineer, and he notably works for Apocalypse. That's his most notable role, is that he works for Apocalypse. He worked for Apocalypse in the age of Apocalypse, which is this alternate world. All right, I'll before I end this, I'll quickly explain the Age of Apocalypse. So Legion is Charles Xavier's son, and Legion is a powerful psychic. And the problem with this is he's powerful, but his mind is fragmented, literally. So he has multiple parts. If you've ever seen Sensui from Yu Yu Hakusho, and you know what the fuck that's about, that's kind of how it is. He has multiple parts. And sometimes these parts become strong enough where they can actually take on a life of their own because he's such a powerful psychic. Like, he can actually will them into existence and make these pocket realities where they exist. If you want to know how that is, read Age of X. But, so he's powerful enough for that. And Legion decides he wants to make his father's dream come true. And he does some thinking and realizes, the dream would come true if it weren't for Magneto. So he goes back to the past to actually kill Magneto before he became Magneto. And some of the X-Men go back in time to stop him. So it was Storm, Bishop, Iceman, and someone else, I believe. I haven't read the story in a while, so forgive me for that. Yeah, so they go back in time and they try to stop him. And Legion ultimately attacks Magneto. However, Charles Xavier gets in the way. And Charles Xavier dies. And the thing about it is, this creates an entirely new universe, an entirely new reality, which is known as the Age of Apocalypse. It is a reality where Professor X never made the X-Men, and so Apocalypse was able to actually conquer the Earth, or at least conquer, New York. Like, he owns most of America, basically, but most notably New York. It happens mostly in New York. But like, this guy is cloning shit. Like, he clones people. He has like these pens. It's a big call to the Holocaust somewhat. Like, he clones who he wants. A lot of genetic mutation and all that shit. And if you don't know Apocalypse's biggest thing is only the strong survive. So it's really and I love this event. I love it. I really do. I love this event. It's my favorite X-Men event ever. Mind you, some of the art is left something to be desired, but I love it. My favorite X-Men event ever. And I own all of the main storyline in one book that comes up to about a little over 1,200 pages. And I read this entire book in about less than a week. 1,200 pages in a week. Mind you, this isn't like novels. Like comic books, you have to actually interpret what's happening. You have to read the captions. in the dialogue. So it can take longer to read a comic book page than it can to take a novel page. So it's a lot. And mind you, these are big pages because the book was oversized. So I read that, and that's what really made me fall in love with Apocalypse. And the fact that they really didn't have that same imposing iron fist in this movie kind of got me disappointed. Because in Age of Apocalypse, Apocalypse is this big ass tyrant, and nobody wants to fuck with him if they don't have to, But ultimately, they know they have to beat him, and so it makes a really desperate situation even more desperate. So, it's fucking terrible. The fact that this movie couldn't be good. This movie is supposed to be the best of the X-Men movies, simply because it had Apocalypse in it. And Apocalypse really didn't help very much. He was, again, not that great a villain. And that sucks. Not that great a villain. Really not that great a villain. His motivations weren't too clear in my opinion. And if they were clear, forgive me, I've tried to blot this movie out of my brain. Then if they weren't clear, then they weren't very strong. They weren't memorable. Baron Zemo, his motivations are memorable because they're very simple, and they're memorable because of what he did in order to actually make his dream come true based on those motivations. The Avengers got his family killed, in his opinion, basically, and so he wanted to destroy them. He wanted to get revenge. That is very simple motivation. However, it shows that he really loved his family, and the things that he was considering, the lengths that he went to, shows just how much he missed his family. And I'll go more into that when I do my Civil War versus Doctor Strange review, but this movie should have been fucking awesome. I'm sorry, let me finish the explanation. So after Charles Xavier dies and Apocalypse takes it, Magneto is the leader of the X-Men. And this story is also the only time that Quicksilver is an X-Man. Because in the main continuity, Quicksilver isn't an X-Men. He's he's just a mutant. He's an Avenger sometimes, but he's not an X-Men. So that mostly was what's wrong with that movie. The characters weren't memorable, besides a few of them. The writing was weak, the story was weak, the fucking action was decent. But not too much to say. This fucking movie was just it was just a blight. It really was. Supposed to be great. It wasn't great. That's all I got to say. So naturally, in terms of who I pick, which movie I'm picking, obviously Deadpool. Because Deadpool was much better than Apocalypse. And then I don't know if that was because, I don't know if part of the reason why it was so successful was because people weren't expecting it to be good, or possibly even Valentine's, because the marketing for Deadpool was amazing. It really was. Amazing marketing for Deadpool. Especially for it to come out Valentine's Day weekend was genius. So I don't know if it was partly that, but I don't know who's expecting much out of the X-Men movies these days. I just don't want to I just don't want to be disappointed. I wasn't even expecting anything much, and he disappointed me. I was scared to expect anything for this movie. Dear Lord, dear Lord. But yeah, Deadpool takes it. Deadpool is a much better movie. It's a much more fun movie. It's much better. It's well put together. It didn't have the budget that X-Men had, but it had, something that X-Men didn't. It had heart, honestly. It had heart. It had heart. It had humor. It had better writing. Had a better main lead. It had a better supporting cast of characters. And that is ultimately what made the difference. So that's basically it. So this has been the Weird Weirdo, the Indecent Exposure Show. I hope you enjoyed almost as much as I did doing this shit. I felt I haven't said enough about X-Men Apocalypse, because I could keep fucking ripping this movie a new one, but that wouldn't be good for any of us. I've just started the day. I shouldn't fucking let this I shouldn't fucking let this go like this the rest of the day. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed, honestly, and see you next time. Peace.